Hey, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. With me is Nathan Fox. How's it going, Nathan?
Great. You caught me right in the middle of a cup of coffee.
Sorry about that. So this is test 73, section 2, question 3. By the way, if you have a Demon free account, you can access this question and follow along with us. Just go to lsatdemon.com and hit start for free. So this question reads, some video game makers have sold the movie rights for popular games.
I'm
Okay,
thinking
video
right
game.
now about, did you know that Mortal Kombat is now in theaters?
Yep. Yeah, so somebody sold the rights to that whole universe to somebody else.
I think they've already made movies about it before potentially. It seems like, I mean, Mortal Kombat's been around for forever since
For a
I
long
was
time.
literally in high school. I heard one complaint about the movie, which was it wasn't violent enough. So, somebody, a blogger that I read, said that, yeah, if you're going to do Mortal Kombat, come on, what are you pulling the punches for? Get in there. And
Hmm.
the whole game is, have you ever played Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's about decapitations and crazy ways of killing people. If you're gonna make a movie, Mortal Kombat, yeah, make it violent. Okay. Anyway,
Hmm.
some video
Yeah.
game makers have sold the movie rights for popular games. That is true in
Okay.
real life. What else does this
Yep.
argument say?
However, this move is rarely good from a business perspective. Okay, that sounds awfully like a conclusion to me because this person is making a judgment about something that people are doing. This move is rarely a good one. Okay, why isn't it good? I'm expecting them to explain why. After all, and by the way, that's a introduces evidence or premises, so this confirms what I was expecting to come. After all, StarQuanta sold the movie rights to its popular game Nostromo, but the poorly made film adaptation of the game was hated by critics and the public alike.
Oh boy.
Subsequent versions of the Nostromo video game, although better than the original, sold poorly.
I
Okay.
mean, don't you already know the answer before you even get to that last sentence?
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to do a correlation to causation problem, maybe. Also, do we know anything about the numbers? It says from this is a poor move from a business perspective. Even if the critics hated it, you could have made tons of money from it. Like, I don't know. I see problems, those problems.
Well, I think you're missing the big elephant in the room. I mean, what's their premise again? Their conclusion is this move is rarely good from a business perspective. What's their
Yeah.
evidence for that?
The critics hated it.
Hated what?
The movie.
One
The-
movie?
yeah.
So you're trying to say that this is rarely good from a business perspective.
Oh, sure. You're saying this one example.
That one example doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the game itself was popular, but maybe the game just doesn't suit itself to a movie adaptation. Or maybe they picked the wrong writer to write the adaptation, or maybe they picked the wrong director to direct this movie, or maybe they didn't market the movie in a proper way. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure that they necessarily like lost money. There's tons of movies that are hated by critics and the public, but
yeah,
still make tons of money.
I mean, their argument, they go on, but see, the thing is, and if I could teach you one thing about not you, Ben, but if I could teach a student one thing about logical reasoning, it's that you've got to attack every bit as you go. And before I even get to their last premise, which their last premise is kind of more useful, right? Subsequent versions of that video game were better than the original, but sold poorly.
Yeah.
So their implication is, hey, if you make a movie out of your game, you might ruin your entire game franchise. That's kind of their point. But before I even read that last bit, I was like, oh, so one game was made into a shitty movie that was hated by critics and the public.
Yeah.
And right, if they made multi-bazillion dollars off of it anyway, then who cares? But if it was hated by the critics and it was hated by the public, then maybe they didn't make any money off of it. But anyway, my bigger objection is one game that was turned into one movie, and you're going to reach a broad conclusion that this move is rarely good from a business perspective because of that one game and one shitty movie? Really? You want to proceed with the rest of the question?
The reasoning in the argument is most vulnerable to criticism in that the argument. Okay, so we've talked about several different flaws, but your initial concern is, hey, you gave me one example to prove a point that's general in application, right? Is rarely good from a business perspective, among other flaws. So A, draws a general conclusion on the basis of just one individual case. Yep, that's a problem.
Sometimes it really is that easy. That's the answer. It's a flaw question. We're looking for something that they did, and it's a problem that they did it. Did they, Ben, draw a general conclusion?
Yes.
The move is rarely good.
This move is rarely good. So we're talking about
That's a general conclusion, broader conclusion.
multiple cases.
Did they base it on just one individual case?
Yes.
Yeah, the company StarQuanta selling rights to the popular game Nostromo. That is one individual case. They have drawn a general conclusion on one individual case. It's the small sample flaw. We've seen it a million times. They did it. It's a problem that they did it. That's the answer.
Yep.
All right, let's tackle these wrong answers.
So, did the argument infer that a product will be disliked by the public merely from the claim that the product was disliked by critics? No, they did talk about critics and the public hating the movie adaptation, but they aren't making a connection between the critics and the public.
A useful exercise, and I do this in class a lot, but a useful exercise for students, if you're trying to get good at flaw questions, think about what the argument would have to have sounded like in order to make B correct. Can you do it, Ben? What did they have to say in order? Because B would be, if they had done that, that would be a problem. But they didn't do that. How would we know if they did do that? What would it sound like?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. So it would have had to say, so infers that a product will be disliked by the public merely from the claim that the product was disliked by critics. So the conclusion would have to say something like, hey, your product or your video game won't be liked by the public in general because it wasn't liked by the critics.
Yeah.
And then that's it, because this answer choice said merely. So you couldn't say anything else. That would be your one piece of evidence. And that's not what this conclusion is saying at all.
So, okay, but the answer choice itself does make sense and could have been correct if they would have done that.
That would be a flaw, but not the
students
flaw here.
Frequently skip to, they think they understand when they really don't, right? Like I'll go, what's wrong with B? And they'll go, oh, it's irrelevant. Or, oh, it's out of scope. Or, oh, it just doesn't make any sense. Well, none of those things are correct.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean it's irrelevant? Did they do it or not? If they didn't do it, then explain to me how they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the correct response to that is actually, oh, well, they would have to have said, if a movie is hated by critics, then it's going to be hated by the public. But they just didn't do that. So it's not the answer. So it's like, I don't know. Words have meaning. And students sometimes are just like real quick to just like label something irrelevant or out of scope or whatever, instead of just actually digging in and, focusing on what it actually means. Let's see if we can do this with the rest of them. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Sure. C, the argument restates as a conclusion a claim earlier presented as evidence for that conclusion. Okay, this is describing a circular argument. To do this, you would have to say, hey, this move is rarely good for business because it's rarely good for business. And in fact, I'm sorry, you'd have to say that in the other order because it would be earlier presented as evidence. So you'd have to say, this move is rarely good for business. Therefore, it's rarely good for business, or something
Right.
along those lines, which is so bad and so obvious that this circular reasoning answer choice is rarely correct because there just aren't that many questions or arguments on the LSAT that are actual circular reasoning.
They do it every once in a while, but they put it as a wrong answer super frequently. It's important that you know what that flaw sounds like. And yeah, it's just restating yourself over and over without providing any new evidence. You're just kind of, you pretend to do logic. Okay. Anyway, D.
Takes for granted that products with similar content that are in different media will be of roughly equal popularity. Okay, so we did have products with similar content. In other words, this game, Nostromo, they were in different media. They were in video games, and they were in a video game, and they were in a movie, but they will be of roughly equal popularity. No, they just showed that, well, at least in this case, one wasn't liked, and then the other one later wasn't liked, but it didn't actually make that assumption. It just showed that that was what happened here.
Well,
So,
I mean, it's not what happened here, right? Like they had a game that was popular. Then they made a movie, assuming it's similar content in a different media, and it was not
which
of
was
roughly equal
it was
popularity.
not, and then the subsequent ones were also apparently not
Well, the
popular.
subsequent games, which were back in the same media, but did it takes for granted, Ben, means what?
Necessarily assumes.
Means they have to agree that
Yeah,
products of similar content in different media will be of roughly equal popularity.
yeah, and
Not
this
only did they
changed.
not do that, they did the opposite of that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are focusing on the future, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to assume this because there were changes. Yeah.
E.
Treats a requirement for a product to be popular as something that ensures that a product will be popular. Okay, this is describing the confusing necessary for sufficient flaw. I mean, I guess we can go into it, but
An example
I
would
didn't
be
see any if
in
then
order
statements.
for no, I mean, in order for me to really love a movie, it has to be made by Quentin Tarantino. Therefore, if a
Therefore,
movie is made by Quentin Tarantino, I will definitely love it. That
yeah,
would be confusing necessary for sufficient. My premise there was I only like Tarantino movies, or Tarantino is required in order for me to love a movie, but he
yeah,
could still make a stinker from time to time according to that premise. So I don't get to assume that therefore, if it's Tarantino, I will in fact love it.
yeah,
Um, that would be confusing a requirement for something that ensures. So necessary, therefore sufficient. The LSAT's most common flaw, which they did not do here. So that is not the answer.
yeah. So the
All
answer
right,
is A.
we're going to wrap it up there. LSAT Demon Daily, you have to come up with a pithy close for the show.
Go drill. I don't know.
Yeah, go drill right now. I don't know.
Go drill.
We'll work on it. How do people
Yep.
submit to LSAT Demon Daily?
Yeah. Email us at daily@lsatdemon.com.